Hi, everyone. Localizing Monitoring, Evaluation, Research, and Learning, MERL, featuring insights from local actors in Burundi, Colombia, and Malawi. While we wait for others to sign in, I'd like to invite you to complete the Mentimeter poll up on the screen to let us know where you're joining from today. You can scan the QR code on the slide or go to menti.com in your browser and enter the code 6216450. Thanks. Welcome to those who've just joined. Let's take a minute to check the map and see where people are joining from today. Thanks everyone for participating in the poll, and welcome to the webinar. I'm Tori Taylor, one of the technical directors for the Data for Impact project, and I'll be leading us through introductions for today's webinar. Today, we've invited MERL experts based in Burundi, Colombia, and Malawi to share their experiences partnering with D4I and other organizations. And we'll ask them to reflect on how these experiences intersect with the principles in USAID's local capacity strengthening policy, which we'll take a closer look at in a moment. This webinar is being presented in English and French with live interpretation. Click the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen and choose off if you'd like to hear the original audio, some English and some French. Click English if you'd like to hear only English, and French for only French. We also have closed captioning available for today's webinar. To enable it, choose the Show Captions CC button and select your preferred language, English or French, from the Zoom menu. Please note that closed captioning in languages other than English might not be entirely accurate. Finally, we're recording the webinar and we'll email the recording out afterwards. Here's an overview of today's webinar. I'm going to speak briefly about D4I and give a quick orientation to USAID's Local Capacity Strengthening, or LCS, policy. We'll talk about the principles in that policy in our discussion today. Then I'll ask panelists to introduce themselves before we move to a facilitated discussion. Finally, if we have time, we'll take some questions from our audience. I'm very sad to say that we originally had planned to have 4 panelists in today's webinar, but Professor Phyllis Dako-Gayake passed away unexpectedly in June. Based at the University of Ghana and a member of the GEMNet Health Network, Dr. Dako-Gayake was a distinguished scholar and public health advocate dedicated to improving health outcomes in underserved communities. Phyllis was cherished by all who had the opportunity to work with her, and she will be greatly missed. We'd like to take a moment of silence to remember and honor her. Thank you to everyone for joining me in that remembrance. Our thoughts remain with her family, friends, coworkers, and community. Data for Impact, D4I, is funded by USAID. It's a consortium led by the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in partnership with Palladium, ICF, JSI, and Tulane University. D4I strengthens local capacity to generate and use high-quality data for strategic decisions on health policy and programming at national, subnational, and community levels. The project investigates program effectiveness, integrates gender into all its activities, supports adaptive management, and learns from evidence. We draw on the expertise in each partner organization and our extensive network of local partners in USAID's priority countries. Throughout the webinar, you can ask questions using the Q&A function in Zoom. Please don't add questions to the chat. We'll do our best to answer your questions at the end of the webinar. Localizing MERL helps ensure that local actors have the resources and the capacity they need for equitable, evidence-informed decision-making. Some applications of this in MERL activities include local capacity strengthening, using a systems lens, engaging with diverse local actors, and implementing other good practices for locally led development. Today marks our 5th and final webinar in a series focused on localizing MERL. The series shares tools and approaches for effective capacity action planning, understanding local actors' roles in complex program systems, promoting local voices through social accountability methods, and more. To learn more about localization in MERL, you can watch the webinar series on D4I's YouTube channel. After the webinar, you'll also get a link to this recording and the series playlist. Before we move on to the speakers, I'd like to take just a moment to orient everyone to USAID's LCS, Local Capacity Strengthening Policy, which is based on 7 principles. Even before this policy was developed, USAID was committed to supporting local capacity. The policy reaffirms that commitment and establishes a shared framework for equitable partnerships and effective programming. The policy's 7 principles are designed to build on the existing strengths of local actors and local systems, respond to dynamic local priorities, and align with USAID's strategic aims. Next, please. The first 3 principles address effective programming to strengthen local capacity. These are: start with the local system, strengthen diverse capacities using diverse approaches, and plan for and measure performance improvement in collaboration with local partners. The other 4 principles focus on equitable partnerships. Align capacity strengthening with local priorities. Appreciate and build on existing capacities. Be mindful of and mitigate unintended consequences from local capacity strengthening support. And finally, practice mutuality with local partners. During our discussion, we'll be thinking about LCS in terms of these guiding principles, and you may hear us reference the language from them. If you'd like to learn more about the policy, please see USAID's website. The link is in the chat. Thank you for letting me take the time to provide that introduction. Now I will turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. And Andrea, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrea Navarrete. It's a pleasure to be here today. To give you a brief overview of my background, I'm an industrial engineer, and throughout my career, I have been passionate about collaborating with different actors to address complex global challenges. My experience spans from working with NGOs, international organizations, government agencies, academia, and local organizations on social impact projects, with a strong focus on monitoring and evaluation, knowledge management, strategic planning, and public policy design. Currently, I am the MERL Regional Manager for UK PAC, that is the UK Partnering for Accelerated Climate Transitions. And this program is dedicated to supporting countries in overcoming barriers to clean growth and accelerating their climate change mitigation efforts. In addition to this role, I'm also a teacher at Universidad de los Andes. I'm a system dynamics professor, and my academic background allows me to bring also a deep understanding of systemic approaches to problem solving, and this is crucial for tackling complex social issues. Previously, I also worked as project manager for D4I in Colombia, where I led collaborative efforts with diverse local actors to enhance child protection services. My work there involved developing logic models, performance indicators, also training staff in monitoring and evaluation tools, and in data visualization, with the purpose also of redesigning information systems to improve case management for child protection. I look forward to sharing more insights during our discussion today and learning, of course, from my experience of my fellow panelists too. Thank you for inviting me. Tawanga, on to you, please.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Tawanga Masepuma. It's a pleasure to meet you all and to be one of the panelists on this webinar. I'll first talk about myself and then about my organization. I work as a research fellow at the Center for Social Research at the University of Malawi. I have over 6 years experience in evaluation and research, mostly in the public health field. I have expertise in qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods evaluation and research, but my greatest strength is in quantitative methods. I have been involved in a number of research and evaluation projects over the years, both as the principal investigator and the co-investigator. For example, I was the co-investigator for the baseline and midline evaluations of the Malawi secondary education expansion for development, SEED, and I am currently leading the Malawi Health Facility Assessment, both of which were funded by USAID under Data for Impact at the University of North Carolina. About my organization, the Center for Social Research is a semi-autonomous research center at the University of Malawi. It was established in 1979 to promote and conduct cutting-edge research, evaluation, and capacity building for knowledge generation and public policy development. Our work has evolved over the years and currently is organized under 4 thematic areas, namely public health and society, on which my work mostly focuses on. And then we have poverty and economic well-being, governance, institutions and citizenship, and social inclusion and equity. With the research experience since 1979, the Center for Social Research is empowered by any other research organizations in Malawi in terms of conducting social science and related research and evaluation. Researchers at the Center for Social Research have vast experience in managing large-scale surveys, quantitative research, and evaluations for numerous clients, including the African Development Bank, the UK government, the Malawi government, UNICEF, UNDP, USAID, and local and international universities, including University of North Carolina, just to mention a few. We'll share more in this discussion. Thank you. Rene, on to you. Next slide, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Just a few words about me. My name is Rene Mahaniakiza. I am senior researcher with more than 20 years of experience in teaching and research at the University of Burundi, and more than 15 years of experience as a researcher and consultant in monitoring and evaluation. At the moment, I am the coordinator of CERPED, which is the Center for Studies and Research in Population and Development, which is an office specialized in quantitative and qualitative research, and particularly in monitoring and evaluation. So to talk about CERPED, since 2017, we have been a partner of USAID for SIMS activities, which is evaluation of services offered by health centers that benefit from USAID support. We also have data quality check activities and data quality monitoring activities. We are also a partner of several organizations benefiting from USAID support and funding and conducting research in Burundi, such as Data for Impact, and other partners such as FHI 360 Pact and others. And mainly we work in the field of monitoring and evaluation. In these various projects and studies carried out, I work as head of mission or main investigator, with the main role of coordinating activities and ensuring the quality of the research and results. I think can I go back to Tori to go on with the presentation? Thank you.
Thank you to all of our panelists for those introductions. Next, we're going to move to the panel discussion. My colleague Liz Millar will be facilitating that portion. Liz, over to you.
Thank you, Tori. The structure of this panel today will include 4 monitor-led questions. Each panelist will have 2 to 4 minutes per question. The panelists are invited to ask follow-up questions of other panelists, and the audience questions entered into the Q&A will be answered as time allows. If we run out of time for audience questions, we will try to share responses to your questions by email following the webinar, so you can look out for that if we're not able to get to your questions today. During today's webinar, questions will be presented in both English and French, with English on the left side of the slide and French on the right side of the slide. Remember to please use the Q&A function through Zoom to ask any additional questions that you may have for our panelists. So let's move on to the panel questions. The first question is, what is one important or interesting experience that you have had with MERL capacity strengthening? How were LCS policy principles reflected in it? Drea, let's hear from you first for this one.
Thank you, Liz. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So one of the most significant experiences that I had was during my role precisely at Data for Impact in Colombia. Our counterpart was the Colombian Institute of Family Welfare, or ICPF. It is one of the largest government agencies here, and it is organized in advocacy or defensoria teams who works directly in the assessment and monitoring of cases and also the judicial processes. And also an important thing to mention here is that all direct services are provided by contracted organizations. As mentioned, the system involves multiple actors, the children, their families, the communities. Also, we have the service contractor providers. We have ICBF at the different levels, local, regional, national. And additionally, we have other entities of the government and also private entities, such as the procurement, prosecutor's office, the ministries of health and of education. And all these actors, based on their interests, take decisions and jointly produce a particular development outcome that in this case is the quality and effectiveness of the children protection services. An important step in defining the project's scope was establishing which was going to be the local systems boundaries to understand relevant processes, decision rules, infrastructure, and regulations that we should include. So the question here was, should we include only the children and ICBF services, or that are here in the pink boundary, or we should include other actors as shown in the blue and in the green boundaries? So through my experience, I have learned that boundaries can vary for each chapter. So it is essential to reach agreements with all of them on what constitutes the local system and how to intervene. So to achieve this, it is key to apply the LCS Principle 1 and start understanding the local system. Here's a simplified feedback loop diagram that illustrates the system and leverage points that we identified through a mixed methods approach. We made surveys, focus groups, interviews to ICBF staff, service contractor providers, and this guided our project scope. As you can see in orange, we have a positive feedback loop, meaning that it is a self-perpetuating pattern of behavior. And in this case, it shows how the children that are in the protection services can increase due to a lack of preventive policies stemming from local actors' low capacity to use data for decision making. This behavior is controlled by the green feedback loop, that is a negative feedback loop. And this one is regulating the local preventive policies through an increased interinstitutional coordination that is driven by community and national government pressure to control the number of cases. Unfortunately, also, the low quality of the data at the local level reinforces the increase of children protection services at the ICBF. And this increases the workload of the advocacy teams, of the service contract providers, and this reduces the usefulness of the indicators for decision making, that is this purple positive feedback loop. So based on this understanding of the system and also of the local priorities, that here we are applying the LCS Principle 4, together with ICBF, we focus on three main activities to leverage the existing capacities and transform the system. The first one was to improve the usability of the model for child protection within the information system. We use design thinking tools, especially experience mapping, user stories, interactive mockups, with the purpose of enhancing the usability and the functionality to improve the data quality. So here in red, you are going to see these activities, how they were impacting the system. The second one was that we co-designed and implemented a methodology to identify needed visualizations for local offices, helping these advocacy teams to understand the usefulness of analyzing aggregated data for decision making. And the third one was that we co-lead workshops with the Protection Directorate involving frontline child protection workers and also technical experts to develop a logic model and indicators for the new case management method. So one key part, and you can see it in blue, of this experience was involving local actors in all the activities to better understand their points of view, their needs, and their strengths. And this collaboration really helped us to determine the best capacity strengthening approaches and to prioritize that. So we prioritize strengthening capacities in MERL tools and in data analytics. These activities were key to shape the local systems so that these MERL tools really meet their goals and needs in a sustainable way. And this, of course, underscored the importance of the collaborative system boundary definition, of mutual capacity strengthening, and of the use of data for informed decision making. It was an amazing experience because we all learn from each other, and it allowed us to design and implement activities that truly leveraged local capacities to transform the system and the behavior of the system. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Andrea. Sorry, Tawanga, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Liz. I'll try to be brief on my response. So I had an amazing experience implementing the impact evaluation of the Malawi secondary education expansion or development between 2021 and 2024, which we collaborated with the Data for Impact. When we began the evaluation, Data for Impact helped us to assess our capacity needs using the research and evaluation capacity tool, recap. The assessment was not meant to determine whether or not we will successfully implement the evaluation, but rather the capacity assessment resulted in numerous training and mentorship opportunities for the local evaluation team and the wider Center for Social Research, researchers and interns, which included training on qualitative data analysis using the tools, training on data visualization and writing finding briefs, as well as mentorship in quantitative data analysis using a difference methods in startup, which I personally benefited. This initial assessment of our capacity needs and the subsequent capacity initiative aligns with the 3 of the 7 LCS policy principles, and they both tackling both the effective programming and equitable partnership. So these include the strengthening diverse capacities through diverse approaches, aligning capacity strengthening with local priorities, and appreciating and building on existing capacities. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you very much, Tawanga. Renee, over to you.
Thank you. I will talk about one experience with the capacity strengthening and monitoring evaluation in research and learning. So the experience which I will mention is about the use of analytic tools by quantitative data, by data for impact. So we have research, we collect and analyze data. So recently we collaborated with Data for Impact in evaluation of the integrated health project in Burundi. And during this partnership for the evaluation of the project, we benefited from the support in terms of capacity strengthening with Data for Impact through a training over 2 weeks on the use of qualitative analysis data software, DEDUS. And this was very enriching for us because we had our own analysis approach and we benefited from information from this training, to carry out this qualitative data using this tool. And the other researchers benefited from this training on DEDUS software. For us, it was an enriching experience because it responded to our needs. We collaborated and we noticed that this training was necessary in terms of needs. If we analyze the contribution or how the strengthening capacity principles were present, they were indeed present because this training aimed to empower our researchers by using this tool, both in the research field, but also in other subsequent research. The training met the priorities of our organization to perform our tasks well, and it also involved our local D4I partner organization, the SIRA Center, with headquarters in Western Africa, in Togo, I think. So this is one of the experiences I can mention. I can go back to to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much to each of our panelists for those thoughtful responses and sharing more about your experiences, both individually and with your organizations, and also for drawing those connections for us to the LCS policy principles. For our next question, we'd like to think a little bit more about approaches and tools to capacity strengthening processes or local capacity strengthening. So the question is, what tools, resources, or strategies have been useful for implementing local capacity strengthening in your partnerships? And what kinds of tools are still lacking in your view? Renee, can we hear from you first, please?
Thank you for this question. Well, indeed, the tools or resources that were used to implement the LCS in our partnerships in terms of capacity building are mainly related to workshops, because we were invited into the different workshops funded by USAID. We attended conferences that were supported by USAID as well. We also joined in webinars that were organized, and with these were funded by the USAID, and we had access to a miscellaneous documentation with resources as well via email communications, communications that we had with the USAID and partners through emails. So indeed, now it was helpful. Now, if there's no lack of specific tools, in my view, but maybe some of the webinars and many other resources, documentation that are supplied are in English, and for organizations in French-speaking countries, well, there is therefore a certain limit related to the language used in accessing the resources, because it's difficult to have access to those resources because they're in a language used in the USAID and their partners, not in French, for instance. Thank you. Over to you. Next.
Yes,
speaker,
Renee.
please.
Andrea, on to you.
Thank you, Liz, for this question. Thank you, Renee, also. So I consider that some useful tools and resources may be system thinking tools, like causal loop diagrams and system mapping, since they have been really, really useful for understanding the interconnections and feedback loops within a local context. And this helps to identify leverage points for interventions, as I just mentioned. Also, applying design thinking tools and design thinking principles has led to a more user-centered and innovative solutions in MERL activities. Tools like empathy maps and journey maps have been particularly useful in my previous work. The third one that I would like to mention is tailored training programs and workshops that are focused on enhancing local partners' skills in monitoring, evaluation, learning, and of course in data analysis. I think this have been instrumental too. And the fourth one that I would like to mention is the tools or the methodologies focused on establishing mentorship programs and peer learning networks where experienced professionals can guide and also support these local actors, and this has proven to be a valuable strategy. Regarding what is lacking, I think that similarly to René, what he mentioned, I also consider that the development of training materials that are specifically tailored to the local cultural, linguistic, and contextual needs is still lacking or needs more work on it. And I think that we should also continue working in promoting the use of sustainably planning tools that help these local organizations to plan for sustainability beyond the duration of the donor funding. And I think that this is also needed to ensure long-term impact and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Luanda, over to you.
Thank you, Liz, for this question. As Arian mentioned, we use the capacity assessment tools such as a recap to identify our capacity gaps and we planned accordingly. So that produced the training opportunities which we had in data analysis and the data visualization, as well as producing findings briefs. In addition, we had the great opportunity with the data for impact team that provided their support and mentorship during data analysis and the reporting writing during the Malawi secondary education expansion for development evaluations. Again, we have the opportunity to present findings during dissemination workshops, which we held at the national level. So that also, all these were very useful during our MERL partnership with the data for impact, and we really appreciate it. To answer the second part of your question, I would say that I wouldn't say that there are specific tools that are lacking. However, in most circumstances, capacity efforts are constrained by the project or activity period and sometimes budgets. So for example, we may lack data analysis software packages, but what would be critical is to have a mentorship arrangement that extends beyond project's completion. That way, a local institution like us, at the Center for Social Research, we may invest in the software packages once the members of staff here at the center have the capacity to use them. So in short, I believe capacity initiatives beyond project-specific MERL partnerships are lacking to implement the LCS policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chawanga, and to all of our panelists for your response to that question. Our third question is, what is a significant challenge you have encountered in localizing MERL practices within your partnerships? And along with that, what changes do you think are necessary to enhance local leadership in MERL? Chawanga, let's hear from you first on this question.
Thank you. I will highlight two challenges that I have encountered, which are not specific to our partnership with the Data for Impact on the Malawi secondary education expansion project. Actually, it is one of the best partnerships we have had so far, to say the least. So the first challenge is the lack of inclusive decision making. So despite our understanding of the local context in Malawi and the consideration of facts to support decision making, international counterparts sometimes fail to hear our voices, leading to contrary decisions. Another challenge is the lack of negotiating power, particularly when it comes to budgetary matters. Unlike the primary contractor would be the international partner, so who would be more power in that. Sometimes some partners may want you to implement an activity at a minimum or no cost, which they or another international partner may not do. So in terms of the changes, a lot needs to be done to enhance local leadership in MERL. I will highlight a few in the interest of first, establishing sustainable partnerships that go beyond project timeframes to ensure continuous mentorship and capacity strengthening. In this partnership, they should deliberately assign leadership roles to local institutions, while international institutions should provide the needed support. This would ensure that local institutions have the adequate capacity to take on leading roles in future MERL partnerships. In addition, there should be deliberate efforts to support local institutions to gain credibility and capacity for implementing high-quality MERL projects. This will in turn help local institutions be entrusted by other international organizations. And this can be achieved by assigning leadership roles to local institutions, as well as co-authoring journal articles from MERL projects, thereby enhancing their international visibility. There is also a need to increase or facilitate access to funding for local institutions. One way to achieve this is by simplifying application and reporting processes, as well as exploiting long-term institutional level partnership beyond project timeframes. Finally, there is the need to advocate for international partners to support and assign leadership roles in MERL activity to local institutions. Let's do away with assigning leadership roles to international partners by default. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Tuanga. Renee, let's hear from you, please.
Well, within our partnerships with other organizations, especially when it comes to the reinforcement of the SERA, I don't see at the level of from our organization's point of view any specific challenges. However, in working with partners in building the capacity of all other organizations, particularly in SERA, we found some difficulties in understanding the importance of SERA by the leaders of some of the organizations that we had to assess. Some of these organizations don't fully understand the importance of SERA, especially by the leaders, as I said, because indeed they don't see the importance of it. And as far as we're concerned, the challenge there is there, and therefore we need to implement an extensive training on MERL with a particular focus on the involvement of project managers and officials of USAID-funded organizations, so that they can understand the importance of MERL. This is what I wish to say. Over to you, Liz or Andrea, to take over the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Andrea, please go ahead.
Thank you, Liz, and really, really interesting examples, Tawanga, Renee. Thank you for that. Okay, I consider that we always learn from challenges, and one significant challenge that I faced was changing the mindset of the central level leaders regarding involving local teams in activities like in all these activities that I just mentioned, but especially in the redesign of the beneficiary model within their system of information. Initially, these central leaders believe that they have already had like a clear understanding of the required changes and which were the priorities. So when we decided to involve the local teams in these activities, it was really fascinating to see their perspectives. Shifting away from this initial idea as they start interacting with the local actors, as they realized the importance of incorporating these local insights too, because the local actors possesses a deep knowledge of child protection, of the regulations, as well as also the pain points and the inefficiencies of the system of information. So their contribution during the redesign process resulted in innovative, concerted ideas. It highlighted also the value of the local expertise. And this experience was transformative and led to a lasting change also in how ICBF engages with local actors, even in other projects that are not related with data for impact. So based on this, I think that some changes to enhance the local leadership may be first, inclusive decision making. It's important to involve local actors in strategic and operational decisions too. All the projects benefit from these ground level insights. This also we can create joint governance structures to ensure that these local voices are not only heard, but that they are also having a real influence. And the second one will be the recognition and valuation, what involves actively shifting from a top-down approach to one that truly values and integrates the local knowledge. The central leaders must be open to learn from local actors to understand that their close interaction with the community, in this case with the children, with their families, with the communities, and also with the systems of information provides invaluable perspectives to change the behavior of these systems. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our panelists for those great examples and very thoughtful insights. Certainly a lot to consider. I just want to take a moment before we move to our final moderated question to remind our audience, if you have questions for our panelists, please add them to the Q&A, the question and answer function in Zoom. And if we have time at the end, we will try to get to some of those questions. And then let's move on to our fourth question for our panelists. And that question is, what do you want USAID to focus on in the next year to be more aligned with the LCS policy in support of local actors? Andrea, let's hear from you on this one, please.
Thank you, Liz. So I think that it will be amazing if USAID can focus in 4 elements. The first one that I want to mention is that it's really important to promote models of shared leadership, where local and international partners can co-lead initiatives, ensuring, as I just mentioned, that these local voices are heard, that are valued, and this can involve co-chairing committees, maybe joint decision-making bodies, and other collaborative structures. The second one, I will say that it will be amazing if USAID may focus on building long-term relationships with these local partners rather than transactional or project-based interactions. But I think that USAID has been moving really forward and is really advancing in this one. And I think that it's something that they may have to continue focus on to foster trust and also mutual respect. And this approach is supporting sustainable development by ensuring precisely the continuity and deepening the partnership over time. The third one is providing training for both local and international partners on system thinking approaches. I do think that this can help the parties to better understand the complexity of local systems and identify these leverage points for having more holistic and sustainable interventions. And the last one is to foster the development of local networks and coalitions that can share knowledge, resources, also best practices, because these networks should be designed to connect various actors and to foster collaboration across different sectors and levels. I think that this part of knowledge management will be really, really helpful to align these projects along the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Tawanga?
Thank you, Riz. There are a number of things which USAID can focus on, and I actually highlighted some of them in my previous response to question number 3. But for this question, I will highlight 3 main things which USAID can focus on in the next year. First, committing resources to building capacity of local institutions so that they can claim leadership roles and negotiating power in MERL partnership. This should also include supporting efforts to establish a country-level community forum, something similar to a Starterist forum, where local MERL actors can ask questions and share experiences. Second, let USAID establish direct collaboration agreements with local institutions to ensure that their activities are non-local. So sometimes you learn about a USAID funded assignment after being approached by a potential international collaborator, and that activity is being led by USAID in the country, which in the other way it might have been a local partner identifying an international partner to work with. So lastly, award funding directly to local institutions following an existing collaborative agreement, and where necessary, as I mentioned, local institutions should then identify international partners they can work with. Thank you. Over to you,
Yes, thank you, Auntie Renee.
Thank you. Well, I would say that given that there are local organizations that already have good experience working with USAID, and also that these organizations have demonstrated their capacity, I think it would be desirable to increase the package of services entrusted to local organizations and to trust these local organizations because, again, they've already demonstrated their capacities. And second, if we increase the package of services, we should at the same time increase the amount of funding offered while increasing monitoring and strengthening the management capacities of these organizations and making a capacity building of the management capacities. So this is the few items I have in mind when it comes to your question. Over to you, Liz.
Thank you for those great responses to that question. We do have a question in the Q&A from one of our audience members that I would like to direct to our panelists. And you can let me know who might like to answer or who has some thoughts about this. So the question is, can you explain a little bit more about capacity assessment on skills such as data visualization? I think, Tawanga, that was something that you mentioned in the recap, use of the recap tool. And data visualization skills, which are not easily assessed through yes or no kind of questions. How can organizations improve the usage of statistical packages, which cost quite some money, and yet they usually do baseline and end lines over 5-year periods? Have you ever done arrangements where the end analysis is done by experts and the organizations lead other aspects? So maybe, Tawanga, do you have some thoughts in response to that question? Could I call on you?
Yeah, thank you, Alice. Thank you, Davis, for this question. On data visualization, so what we did was after we had our capacity needs assessed and then we planned. So one of it was on producing attractive presentations and then reports. So we should include the appropriate use of figures, tables, and graphs. So that's all what it's about data visualization. So there's a website which we were produced it, the Noun project, which has a lot of icons which you can include in slide presentations and in reports. So also, it wasn't about a yes or no kind of question to assess, but rather a package on data visualization, utilizing various tools to make sure that you are presenting the same findings in the report, but in pictorial or in figures under tables or graphs. So in terms of the statistical software packages, so in our case, the experience I've had is agreeing with the party that we are going to procure a statistical software license. So at the baseline, we agree to purchase a license, which was a perpetual license, which doesn't expire, unlike those yearly renewable licenses, which would expire. So in terms of baseline and midline or whatever period, we are able to utilize the perpetual licenses, which we brought. Thank you. I hope I've answered your question. Over to you, Liz.
Yeah, thank you, Tawanga, for that great response. Renee or Andrea, do you have any thoughts? Would you like to add answering this question? And if not, that's fine. Andrea, did you want to say something?
Yes, I was going to mention not precisely like these data packages to analyze data, but I would like to mention like some strategies that we used for this redesign of system of informations and also for data visualizations with the local actors. And first, it was to make like hands-on workshops where all these participants can participate, can make some kind of case studies, presenting real-world scenarios where they have to interpret data and create visualizations. That was really helpful for them, like to be aware of the data that they do really need, not the data that they want, but the data that they need to take decisions, to make reports, to create policies. So that was really useful, like to put them these case studies, and also to make some kind of role playing or use design thinking tools to understand which are like their main pain points. Based on these pain points, create or user stories for redesigning the system, or creating data visualizations that address those pain points. So that's also helpful when working with the local actors, because they like empower themselves and start making like a positive feedback loop and on asking the information that they do really need to for decision making or anything like that.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I want to be mindful of time. We only have 1 minute left in our webinar time for today. So I just wanted to take a minute to point our audience members towards some key publications on the D4I website. Linked on this page, you can find more about D4I's approach to local capacity strengthening, case studies from MERL partnerships with capacity strengthening focus, and a guide to available tools and resources. And I want to say thank you so much to our wonderful panelists, as well as to our audience participants for joining us for today's webinar. As we mentioned, the recording will be available on D4I's website. And we are now at time, so if people need to drop off, please do. But I also wanted to give our panelists a last chance to add any closing remarks or to sum anything up that you wanted to share with the audience as they're leaving today. So let's see, Andrea, do you have anything brief to say to our audience?
No, invite the audience to continue applying these LCS principles in their projects. I think that this is really helpful and makes sustainable the interventions and the work that we are doing in all the countries.
Thank you, Andrea. Renee?
No, I have nothing to say, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Renee. And Tawanga? Any last thoughts from you?
Thank you. Is just to highlight that the LCS policy is a great policy. I think what is required is to make sure that are implemented extensively and including advocacy about the policy, so that people, organizations, particularly at the international level, also understand and also utilize the policy to build capacity of local actors and allow them to take leadership roles. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks to all of our panelists for those wonderful insights. Definitely some thoughts for us to as we continue in this work. And thank you as well to those at D4I that helped to organize the webinar. Have a good day. Thank you for joining us.